Whispered Facts episode. This time all about Australia, mate. I know, that was an absolutely woeful attempt at the accent, but you are very welcome nonetheless. And this episode is one I've been looking forward to making for quite some time. Australia is very high on my list of places to visit, so I'm excited to do this video and hopefully learn some new and interesting facts about the place we call Down Under. So with that being said, it's time to lay back, relax, and let yourself drift away as I whisper facts about Australia. Australia, officially the Commonwealth of Australia, is a sovereign country comprising the mainland of the Australian continent, the island of Tasmania, and numerous smaller islands. It is the largest country by area in Oceania and the world's 6th largest country. Australia's population of nearly 26 million in an area of 2,941,300 square miles is highly urbanized and heavily concentrated on the eastern seaboard. Canberra is the nation's capital, while the largest city is Sydney. And other major metropolitan areas include Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, and Adelaide. So we begin with some fairly well-known early facts there that I think a lot of us know. And what really stands out to me is the fact 26 million people is an extremely low population for such a vast area. But the majority of Australia is covered in the outback, making up around 70% of the continent. English is the national language. The Australian dollar is its official currency. It has no land bordering countries, and Australia is both a country and a continent. Indigenous Australians inhabited the continent beginning about 65,000 years ago, prior to the first arrival of Dutch explorers in the early 17th century, who named it New Holland. In 1770, Australia's eastern half was claimed by Great Britain and initially settled through penal transportation to the colony of New South Wales from the 26th of January 1788, a date which became Australia's National Day. The name Australia comes from the Latin Terra Australia Incognito, which means the unknown southern land. I actually recall this fact from my recent facts video on auroras, in which terms of land area, Australia is 32 times greater than that of the UK, almost twice than that of Europe, and almost equal to that of the United States of America. Australia is the oldest, flattest, and driest inhabited continent with the least fertile soils. It is a mega-diverse country, and its size gives it a wide variety of landscapes and climates, with deserts in the centre, tropical rainforests in the northeast, and mountain ranges in the southeast. The 8 main states and territories of the country include Queensland, New South Wales, Australian Capital Territory, Victoria, South Australia, Western Australia, Tasmania, and the Northern Territory. Australia is known as the sports capital of the world. The reason is more than 70% of its capital participates in a recreational activity or sports at least once in a week. Despite this, around 35% of the population is considered obese. Yeah, I do think of Australia as being a sports-oriented country. It's one of the big nations when it comes to the Olympic Games and certain sports as well. They usually score high in the medal count at the Summer Olympics. I'm not so sure about the Winter Olympics, but I never thought of Australia as somewhere with an obesity problem. But 35% is quite a high figure, you have to say. Australia Day, the national day of the country, is celebrated on the 26th of January every year. The day is a form of celebration of Australia's diversity and tolerance of different sects of people. The kangaroo is the national animal of Australia. There are around 35 million kangaroos in Australia within the commercial harvest area, and they are found only in Australia. I love the fact that you can only find kangaroos in Australia. They're just one of the iconic images of the country, not to mention being a fascinating animal, and certainly one that I hope to cover on this channel at some point in the near future. Australia is home to some of the world's most venomous spiders, including the funnel web spider. The venom is milked from these spiders at the Australian Reptile Park, the only place in the world where this happens, and sent to a laboratory in the country where it is made into anti-venom. This is something I've looked into fairly extensively in the past the various species of spiders, the funnel web being the most poisonous and the most aggressive as well. There's also the redback spider, which looks sort of like a black widow, only with the addition of a large red stripe on the abdomen area. It's certainly the main thing about the country that would make me uneasy, I think, if I was to visit. Coming from a place with no poisonous spiders or snakes, to my knowledge anyway. I used to think you only find these spiders and snakes in the outback, but no, they do actually live in urban areas too, and are often found around or even in people's homes, so you do need to be very careful. You need to check your shoes before putting them on and things of that nature, just to be safe. Australia is a highly developed country with the world's 12th largest economy. It has a high income economy with the world's 10th highest per capita income. Australia is a regional power and has the world's 13th highest military expenditure. The time zones in Australia are the Western Standard Time, Central Standard Time, and Eastern Standard Time. Australia's standardisation of the time started in 1892. The representatives accepted the recommendation, the 1884 International Meridian Conference, to use the Greenwich Mean Time. In Australia, you can undergo a unique health treatment, which is expected to be 40,000 years old. These Aboriginal cultures and healing techniques are believed to be the oldest in the world. Difficulties and illnesses such as depression, cancer, and substance abuse can be treated with these centuries-old techniques. Australia is the only country in the world where there are more species of venomous snakes than the non-venomous variety. The inland taipan is the most venomous of all, and with one bite it can kill at least 100 fully grown men. Yeah, that's certainly not a snake you want to get bit by, but I'm pretty sure there's another snake that is responsible for more bites due to its level of aggression, and I think it may be the eastern brown or the king brown or something like that. I'm not exactly sure of the name, but I do recall looking up videos on it. It was actually quite a while ago, but I do recall seeing this snake that was considered more aggressive than the inland taipan. The longest fence in the world is in Australia, and it is 5,530 kilometers in length. It is called the Dingo Fence. The Great Victoria Desert is larger than the whole of the United Kingdom, and is just one extremely long time, and I guess at the time it was probably the best option that they had. And I hope that those 8 well-behaved convicts did their duty to the best of their ability, and I hope that they didn't misbehave when doing so. In 1902, Australia became the second country in the world to allow women the right to vote. The world's highest steel arch bridge, the Harbour Bridge, is in Sydney, New South Wales. It spans 97.3 metres and 134 metres high above the mean sea level. It is recorded in the Guinness Book of Records for its span. And I believe that you can actually climb the bridge as well, under a controlled setting, of course. You get climbing gear, a helmet, and that sort of thing, and a guide takes you up in groups. I think that would be amazing to do, and something I would certainly look to do if I was to visit Sydney at some point in my life. The country has the lowest population density in the world, with only 2 people per square kilometre. Australia has a vibrant, multicultural community of people from close to 200 countries, and over 200 different languages and dialects are also spoken in the country, making it very rich in diversity. There is a town by the name of 1770, located approximately 6 hours north of Brisbane, along the coast of central Queensland, which is so named because that was when Australia was discovered by Captain James Cook. Gina Reinhardt, the wealthiest Australian woman, has a net worth of around $31 billion. She is estimated to be making $600 every second. The Emu War of Australia is the war of man versus the birds. Emus are very big birds with heights at an average of no less than 5.7 feet, the second largest living birds in the world. They have long legs and necks with short wings, less than 8 inches. When the emus grew in numbers, they started to wreak havoc on crops, and that started the Great Emu War of Australia. So we have the epic battle between man and bird. Does anybody remember Rodhull and Emu? I suppose you'd have to be a certain age and you'd have to come from the UK, but they were so funny. I recall seeing them when I was a kid, particularly the time that Emu roughed up Michael Parkinson, which was a really great moment, and well worth seeing on YouTube if you've never seen it. So we have the emu being the second largest bird in the world, and I imagine the first would be the ostrich. The health service in Australia includes doctors who will visit remote this fact, and it was probably set in Australia, but I wouldn't be 100%. I would have to look that fact up to be certain. From 1838 to 1902, swimming in public beaches of Sydney and New South Wales during the daylight was illegal due to the reasons of morality. The exposure of female flesh was deemed very much with the lack of separate sex changing areas. These were before swimwear for women came into the mainstream. Kangaroo meat is widely available in Australia, and many people like this meat for its low-fat content. This fact makes me think about the Belfast Christmas market, which comes to town every year in November until just before Christmas. And one of the stalls there actually serves kangaroo burgers. Now, I've never had one of these burgers myself, but I believe they are very popular. And I've only ever heard good things about them, so yeah, kangaroo meat might actually be very tasty. I would actually be quite interested to try one of these burgers. So I think maybe this Christmas coming, I might take a trip there. The Sydney Opera House gets 10.9 million visitors every year. Builders expected the construction of the Sydney Opera House to take 4 years, but it eventually took 14 years to build, with 10,000 construction workers involved. Volcanoes can be found in various parts of the world, but Australia is the only continent that does not have an active volcano. Yeah, this is something I've never thought about, but once you do think about it, you realize you've never heard of a volcano in Australia. And this is the reason why there aren't any. At least there are no active volcanoes in Australia. I'm not sure if there are any extinct ones. I would have to look into that further. Colloquial names for Australia include Oz and the land down under, usually shortened to just down under. Other names include the Great Southern Land, the Lucky Country, the Sunburned Country, and the Wide Brown Land. Religious beliefs in Australia are diverse, but 30% of the population do not have an identified religion. 22% are Catholic, 16% are Christians, 13% are Anglican, 2% are Buddhist, 2% are Islam, and the others remain undecided. Australia set a new Guinness World Record for the largest female swimsuit group photo shoot in 2007. 1,010 women put on their swimsuit and headed to Bondi Beach to set the record. And I have to say that that sounds like something well worth looking up, purely for the world record, of course, and nothing else. In 2018, politicians discussed the Australian flag design and whether it should be changed. The flag still incorporates the Union flag of the United Kingdom, which isn't a true reflection of modern Australian life. Australia is the largest island in the world. There is an ongoing debate that Greenland should be the world's biggest island, since Australia is a continent. However, Australia still has the qualifications of an island. I was actually aware of this fact beforehand, and I do think Greenland should be considered the largest island in the world. It is an island at the end of the day, even if it's mainly covered in ice, with very few people living on it, but it's still an island. But I guess it's fairly unimportant at the end of the day. Highway 1 in Australia is the longest highway in the world, spanning around 9,000 miles in total. On December the 17th, 1967, Prime Minister Harold Holt went to Cheviot Beach with his friends to swim. Prime Minister Holt and his friends were on the beach around 12:15 p.m. According to his friends, Prime Minister Holt went into deeper and deeper water. Then he disappeared. Authorities conducted an enormous search operation after the incident. At one point, there were 50 divers simultaneously looking for him, but his body was never found. His death was commemorated in a number of ways, among them by the establishment of the Harold Holt Memorial Swimming Centre in Melbourne. Wow, I wonder what happened to him. Well, I don't know for sure, obviously, but the first thing that sprung to my mind is potentially a shark attack, maybe, because I know there are a lot of sharks in and around Australia, so you have to be extremely careful when you go in to swim, especially in deeper water. But I guess we'll never know exactly what happened, and it will remain one of life's unsolved mysteries. Tourists in Australia tend to overstay. Reports have shown that most of them are Malaysians and Chinese, whilst a number of Americans, British and Indian are also guilty. The department said that it will not detain the overstaying tourists if they work with the government to clear up their cases. In Australia, the popular fast food chain of Burger King is known as Hungry Jack's. Koala bears are popular in Australia, although there are actually 10 times as many camels as there are koalas, with Saudi Arabia being one of the countries to that's completely new to me. Over 1 trillion bottles of wine are produced in Australia every year. While much of the wine stays within the country, there is a thriving export market to the rest of the world too. In the red centre of the country, the vast rock of Uluru is located, also known as Ayers Rock. It is surrounded by various Aboriginal tribes that worship Aboriginal totems and the scrubland. Nearly 2.5 kilometres of the rock is estimated to be underground, which is connected with the Olgas, where again, after 16 miles, the rock emerges. And I think Ayers Rock is something else that is very iconic about Australia, and I absolutely love it. I think it's stunning in appearance. If you've ever seen a photo of it, especially at sunset, due to the colour of the rock, it's just one of the wonders of the world. Home to many crocodiles, every year there is at least one fatal accident involving these creatures. The Great Barrier Reef is the largest ecosystem in the whole world, and it is the pride and joy of Australia. It has nearly 2,500 individual reefs visible from space and is stretched halfway down towards the eastern coast. The World Surfing Championship was first held in Sydney, Australia in 1964. Vegemite is a dark brown spread invented by Dr. Cyril P. Callister, a chemist. The texture of Vegemite is sticky with a salty, malty, and slightly bitter taste. Aussie parents raise their kids and toddlers on Vegemite. It's one of the first foods that parents give to them because of their nutritional value. And I believe Vegemite is very similar to Marmite, which we have here in the UK. I've never actually tried Marmite before, but it falls under that sort of category of you either love it or you hate it. I believe that's actually the slogan for it. But as I'm thinking about Marmite, a video is coming to my mind. It was a sort of taste test video created by Ephemeral Rift, who you may have heard of before and seen his channel. He's one of my favourite creators here on YouTube. Well, he did a Marmite taste video quite recently, and it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. When he tastes a huge spoonful of the Marmite, far more than anyone should ever be tasting on its own. So yeah, I highly recommend checking that out if you've never seen it. His channel is awesome with so much good content you wouldn't believe. He's definitely one of the best and most creative ASMR channels on YouTube. The Australian Alps receive more snow than Switzerland. The These Alps are part of the Great Dividing Range, along with a series of mountains, highlands and hills, and run about 3,000 kilometres in northern Queensland through New South Wales, and is a part of northern Victoria. The kangaroo and emu are both featured on the Australian coat of arms. This represents the nation moving forward, as neither animal is physically capable of moving backwards. And finally, by a staggering scoreline of 31-0, Australia beat American Samoa in a 2002 FIFA World Cup qualifier. In doing so, they set a record for the largest ever victory in an international football match. And as a fan of the sport, I have seen the game in question, the highlights anyway. There's a video here on YouTube narrated by an actor called James Nesbitt, who is from Northern Ireland. It was shortly after this result, I believe, that the qualifying process changed, so bigger nations didn't have to play the minnows of the game, such as American Samoa, because there's really no point. Australia actually moved to Asian qualifying a fair few years ago now, which I believe was around possibly 2006 or 7. The reason being to give them more competition, as there's really nobody in the Oceania region who can compete with them outside New Zealand occasionally, who are now the #1 ranked team in that region. Well guys, that is just about it for this Whisper Facts episode on Australia. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I have to say that this has been one of my favourite episodes to make so far, having had a big interest in Australia ever since I was young. So it really was fascinating learning so many new things about the country, and hopefully you guys agree. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to hit the like button before you go. Consider subscribing if you're new around here, and I'll bring you plenty more fact videos like this one in the very near future. If you do subscribe, be sure to hit the notification bell as well to get notified when my latest videos go live on the channel. But thank you all so much for your support as we continue to grow the channel. Subscribing, commenting, and liking the videos really make a difference, so thank you for that. And until next time, rest easy, sleep well, and I hope to see you again very soon for another video. And goodbye for now.